KVC, Brendan here, my friend Morrissey, continuing my top 100. This is number 70 through 61. I'll try to go through this kind of quickly, but I've seen a lot of people continuing to express interest in making a top 100 like this. Again, I would highly encourage it. If you're not already, I would suggest just making just like a note on your phone or something like that of I don't know if you either want to start going down from like the top to the bottom or vice versa. Either way, just choose your favorites and see kind of where they stack against each other. It's kind of a cool exercise to do, and will be a good thing to return to in the future. Anyways, number 70 here. I just talked about in my last video. I didn't realize she was a local artist, or at least lived around here at one point. But St. Vincent. This is her self-titled one from 2013, and this is the first one of hers that I heard, and I've heard it said that you just kind of like whatever St. Vincent album you first heard. Insert in here, but anyway, this is you could just most accurately describe her as being just sort of art rock or art alternative. On this record, she has a lot of interesting things to say about, like, she has a song called Digital Witness, which is kind of expressing the concern about, like, she would play a show and see all of her fans instead of watching the show filming it, and just commentary on like social media and that kind of thing, which I know can get kind of maybe a little annoying, at least people in my generation, because it just seems like a criticism that you hear all the time, and yeah, there's good and bad aspects of it, but anyway, musically it's a great song. I love the track Huey Newton, Prince Johnny. I Prefer Your Love is a great ballad for her mother, I think. Regret, I actually heard, the track Regret, I heard on the radio around here, kind of surprising. And yeah, just a great album. St. Vincent, self-titled, number 70. Probably one of the more modern records I have in my top 100. Now, compared to her other ones, like I said, this is probably my favorite, and it's the first one of hers I heard. I enjoy her new one. I don't think it comes anywhere close to being as good as this one, honestly. And probably my second favorite of hers is Actor, followed by like Strange Mercy and Marry Me. She's a great artist. One of the most important guitar-based musicians out there, I think. Not that she's some kind of prodigy or anything, but she just makes really important music, it feels like. 69 here is Slowdive's classic album Souvlaki. Again, this is a recent purchase for me. I don't know if you've noticed, maybe you'll notice this in my future videos, but a lot of my top 100s were recent purchases for me, not because I had only listened to them recently, but because as I got the idea to do this top 100 series, I realized like I should probably actually own my top 100 albums. Now there is one exception to that, but that album is getting a repress, but I will get to that I think next video. Anyways, about Slowdive, I've talked about them a lot recently. They had a great album this year, self-titled, but this is their one from 93, shoegaze. I think who was it? Steve at Flipside CT just made a video showing their self-titled, and you described how you hate the word shoegaze, which I kind of agree. It's kind of like the word emo. It almost seems like derogatory sometimes, but dream pop, I guess, would be a slightly better term, even though they're a little less ethereal than something like Cocteau Twins. But that kind of somewhat effects-based, slightly ambient rock sound. This is one of the best examples of that. I don't really know what else more you can say about this. It's just a seminal shoegaze album. If you know what the term shoegaze is. 68 is probably my favorite Velvet Underground. I think this is the top rated Velvet Underground I have on my list. This is Loaded, the last one with Lou Reed, and I don't know. I guess you had to consider J.J. Cale as part of the classic lineup, but he's not on this record. Mo Tucker's still on drums. Just front to back, just solid track list. I mean, it just goes like this. Who Loves the Sun, one of their classic songs. Sweet Jane, Rock and Roll, Cool It Down, New Age, Head Held High, Lonesome Cowboy Bill, I Found a Reason, Train Round the Bend, and Oh Sweet Nothing. I think not only was Who Loves the Sun, but I think also Oh Sweet Nothing were both featured on the High Fidelity soundtrack. Maybe not on the soundtrack release, but they were both in the movie. And that's just kind of a fun fact. I just kind of enjoy the sound on this album. It's not experimental by any means. It's pretty straightforward, kind of radio-friendly, accessible classic rock. But I do think it's probably my favorite thing Lou Reed has ever done. He wrote like every single song on here, and sings lead vocals on every song, and he just, he's just a great artist. I really enjoy his album. Transformer as well, and Berlin is good, but Velvet Underground, this is I don't think it's a very first pressing, but it is a earlier pressing on Cotillion. You can see a small cutout here. It actually took me a while to find this, and originals are not rare, but they're one of those that I guess is a little harder to find. So 67 here is the Strokes' first album, Is This It? Part of the sort of early 2000s, not post-punk, but like alternative sort of revival or great sort of resurgence that the alternative scene had with, the Strokes, Killers, Franz Ferdinand, Interpol, things like that. This band, famous for being fronted by Julian Casablancas there, who is kind of, your classic archetype of a lead singer. But this came out in 2001. I think this is the original UK track list. It was edited for the US CD release to exclude the track New York City Cops, which is kind of, critical of the NYPD. And obviously right after 9/11, maybe that wasn't the best kind of thing to be angry at. But the Strokes, this isn't the original artwork either. The original had like a suggestive cover with like a woman's butt and like a glove. Which kind of, come to think of it, reminds me of that joke in Spinal Tap with their album Smell the Glove, which is just a terrible concept for an album cover. Anyways, just, the opener, the title track, Is This It? Kind of epitomizes that whole scene, kind of the sound that they were trying to revive, sort of a punk thing, or not necessarily straightforward like hardcore punk, but like more of like the 70s New York style punk. I think like Television on this album especially, they have a huge Television influence. You can really hear that on the track. I think it's Barely Legal. Sounds a lot like the opener to Marquee Moon, See No Evil. But this, this was a smash hit. It's still considered probably their best album by many, myself included. Just a great classic album. Next up, I guess this would be 66. Let me double check that. Got 70. Yeah, 66 here. Kraftwerk, Computer World. Kraftwerk, German electronic pioneers, part of the krautrock scene, which was just kind of a catch-all term for any music coming out of Germany in the early 70s. This album though is from like 81. This is the US version. Computer World, there's an original, there's German versions of all their albums with German titles. I think this would be Computer Welt, all one word. I don't know German, obviously, but I'm still looking for a better copy. Obviously, the cover is in the greatest shape. Well, maybe not so obviously, you can't really tell from that far away, but it's got some issues like with the spine and everything. Now, these were put out in the US on Warner Brothers, who actually, these are actually decent pressings. Okay, this copy is cleaner than I remember it being. But, the whole first side features, well, it's more of, the first side is kind of, one long track, or it can be, all the songs meld into each other kind of perfectly. Going with, from Computer World into Pocket Calculator, which is one of the more famous tracks up there with like Autobahn or something. And then the next one, Numbers, featuring Speak and Spell samples. Here's the group. They're kind of famous for the mannequin sort of imagery. It's a little creepy, but this is my favorite of theirs. And side 2 opens with probably my favorite Kraftwerk track, Computer Love, which is like a 7.5 minute. It's more of a ballad, like a straightforward ballad. Pretty accessible for a Kraftwerk song, honestly. You would recognize the melody if you know the Coldplay song. I think it's called Talk. They sample that, or maybe not sample is the right word, but they use the exact same melody, and it's like credited with like permission from Kraftwerk and the liner notes and everything. I have that CD somewhere. Anyways, just a great melody. It's a really beautiful song, sort of about, even back in the 80s, sort of longing for connection in this age of technology, longing for human connection. Beautiful song. So 65 here, another recent purchase, Modest Mouse, Lonesome Crowded West. Kind of briefly talk about this, as I talked about it recently, but just, crazy sort of songs, sort of balls to the wall, guitar playing in terms of angular songwriting and sort of left field playing style, and then the great rhythm section that keeps up with him. Really interesting voice as well. The singer, Brock Isaac, he's on the top of his game with this album. Came out in '97, and again, I kind of prefer earlier Modest Mouse to the later stuff. I like stuff like Moon in Antarctica, this album, their first one. Those are all really great releases. 64 is the classic Leonard Cohen, Songs of Love and Hate. This is my favorite Leonard Cohen. Last year, or I guess it was 2016 at this point, whenever I heard that he died, the first thing I did, I was laying in bed, but I got up, I pulled this record off the shelf, and I dropped it onto side 1, track 2. Last Year's Man. Just plain black inner sleeve. It's a Columbia label here. Last Year's Man is my favorite Cohen track. I mean, he's the guy that wrote Hallelujah, and that's like his 10th best song, which is really crazy. He has so many great songs. He's probably one of the best songwriters of the last century. I don't really think many people would argue with that. Up there with Dylan. Some people prefer him to Dylan. He had a long career, some parts successful, some parts less successful. And I think it's a little sad that he's sort of remembered as just being the guy that wrote Hallelujah, because like I said, that's only like his maybe 10th best song. And the rest of this record is great too. This is kind of a heavy listen. because it's such a bleak album. Now, next up I got number 63. This is Weezer, Pinkerton. This is, I think this came out in 90, oh man, like 94, 95, maybe 96, somewhere around there, but this is their second album. A lot of people know the first one, the self-titled Blue album, as it's known, with, you know, just kind of them on the cover. But this one came out, it was highly anticipated, and I think it left a lot of people kind of disappointed. You know, it's definitely not a Blue album. It's a little more maybe hard on their sleeve in terms of songwriting or lyrics. Definitely more like raw. If you want like a more raw Weezer, and I know they're kind of a punching bag of a band now, with their kind of modern stuff. They've improved slightly since the 2000s, but you know, they took a long hiatus after this record, and kind of never quite returned to the same level of greatness as their first two. I think because this album kind of bombed so hard and received so much like negative attention. But it's considered one of their best two now by fans. It has a cult status. You know, I think it has one of the best three song stretches on any Weezer record, which is side two. The first three tracks are Good Life, El Scorcho, and Pink Triangle. Really, the whole second side is perfect. The only song on here I'm not really too crazy about is the second track, Get You. But the opener is great. Across the Sea is a great sort of sad ballad. But you know, Weezer, I don't think I numbered that one correctly, but that was 63. 62 here, Dinosaur Jr., Living All Over Me. Definitely my favorite Dinosaur Jr. This one's from, geez, I don't remember what year it is. 80 something, but you know, this is a reissue from Jaguar from 2011. Oh, 87, it says right there. I was looking for that. Originally on SST, which I've been realizing lately is such a great label. If you don't know Dinosaur Jr., I would just, you know, put this album on, first track, Little Furry Things, and if you're captivated kind of immediately, then this band is for you. They kind of are the best band for if you want like a kind of noisy, sort of alternative punk, slightly, I want to say experimental, but they definitely have some ambitions that they aspire to on this record. Maybe not in terms of song content, but or lyrical content, but song like instrumentally structuring their songs. You know, they reach some pretty high heights on here. It says recorded on 2 crappy tape recorders by Lou and Lou alone in his room. That isn't always apparent. I mean, it has sort of a kind of tight mix, but I want to say it's like lo-fi per se. It's just a slightly noisy recording, I guess. Yeah, if you don't know, Jay Mascis is in this band. He's sort of a famous guitar player. Again, not for his being like a virtuoso, but not for being a virtuoso, but for just having a great sound and a great style of playing. Really unique band, and highly influential too. Last one here, 61, The Stooges, self-titled 1969 album, sort of Doors inspired cover here. This came out on Elektra. They were from Detroit, sort of signed on at the same time as the MC5. I hear people aren't always crazy about the third track, the long one on here, We Will Fall. I actually really like that song. It's you just got kind of a slow build, and it features John Cale on viola, and Iggy Pop has great vocals all over this thing. Obviously with I Want to Be Your Dog, No Fun, is probably my favorite track on here. Real Cool Time, 1969. Just a classic album. This is a reissue. This is a Rhino reissue, and it had a sticker on the shrink wrap, like right here, talking about like 1969 is it the death of the 60s and the birth of punk, and they answer yes on the sticker. I thought that was really funny and kind of accurate, because it's widely considered one of the first true punk albums, as opposed to just like a garage rock album. Mostly because Iggy Pop was considered, you know, the first punk, I guess. What else to say? This is kind of essential, I think, in anyone's record collection. Well, that's it. For this episode, I got more coming up, obviously, and more videos also coming up real soon. I'm going to do top few finds from this year, and those will all be based on like value and how much I played stuff, and yeah, it'll be a good video. So look forward to that. Look forward to more of this. Again, I'd highly encourage you to make your own list and start sharing. I'd love to see you guys what you guys do. So take care.